Now, I want to go to this controversy over the former One Nation staffer, Sean Black, who was a convicted rapist. You had a go during the week at Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price because of what she said about this. She responded on this program last night. Here's what Jacinta had to say.
I'm not just speaking from the position of being an advocate in a very serious area, but I'm coming from being a survivor of sexual assault myself, and that for anyone who's been in that situation, I'd hope to, I'm sure that they would believe that they themselves personally would not want to be confronted with the idea of working in the same workspace as an individual such as that.
Pauline Hanson, she's right, isn't she? It's a very important issue. Did you personally approve the re-employment of Sean Black after the rape conviction?
Yes, I did.
Do you regret that?
And guess what? I haven't had one complaint. No, I don't. I have not had one complaint from the staff, and one is a former federal police officer that works in that office. Let's get this straight. He doesn't work my parliamentary office. He doesn't go to Parliament. He is a man who's done his time in prison, a man who has to make a living for his wife and his 2 children. So what am I supposed to do? What do you want to do? What do you expect?
Well, you've dismissed him now. It doesn't seem
sexual offences
Pauline,
in this country a year. So anyway, then you have 4,000 that are convicted. So how do you know the other people out there? This is political, Chris. This is just a political bloody witch hunt, and I'm shocked by Jacinta Price jumping on this bandwagon with Garth Hamilton. No, I'm not going to back away from this, Chris.
No, I can hear that.
Because everyone has a chance, a second chance, and he's been given a chance.
But you have backed away, and that's why I'm asking. I want to get in with this next question. It doesn't stack up. You're saying you don't regret re-employing him after the conviction, yet you dismissed him earlier this week. Those two things can't be right, can they?
Chris, because the political pile-on that is happening, that's going at the moment, right? My aim now is to get on and put out policy for this country. The Liberal Party, I'm getting so much put onto me and the party. They're trolling through everything to actually make a sound like the worst party with our members of parliament, everyone. You have no idea what the hell is happening to me on a daily basis from not only not from the Labor Party, from the coalition and the media, trolling through everything, dirt, whatever they can do to criticise One Nation. You've put me in such a position, not only that, you put this man in a position as well. And it didn't need to be this way, but the people have made it that way. The media and the Liberal Coalition Party and their gutter politics. I've got no time for them. The whole lot stinks. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not happy with it.
Pauline, I think given your polling and given your results in South Australia and elsewhere, I agree with you. There's no doubt there are going to be attacks coming to you from the coalition parties and from Labor as well. They'll be trawling through everything, as you say. And obviously someone's found this re-employment issue and they've raised it. But I just come back to this point, though. Are you saying then that you've only dismissed Sean Black because of the public outcry, that you were right to re-employ him after a rape conviction?
No, he agreed with me to actually had leave. He knew this. He's worked for the Liberal Party. He's also worked for the Labor Party. He's been a councillor, okay? So he knows politics. As he said, Pauline, they'll never let up on this. He said, when you've come this far, he said, they'll never let up on it. So it was an agreement between both of us, Chris. And I feel sorry for the poor man and his wife and his kids. And that's why I said to your producer today, Chris, I didn't want to discuss this anymore, about this today on the air, because I think it's disrespectful to him and his family to keep this going and going. So you've kept it going again. Well, I've made my stance about this, and I gave this fellow a job again to try and, redemption after doing his time. When is the man going to get on with his life? And it disgusts me that you've kept this going. There was no need. He's done his time and he should have been able to live his life in peace, but it's not the case, is it?
Pauline, you'll appreciate that I ask whatever questions they like of people. I don't get into agreements, or I'm not told what issues to avoid, and I wanted to clarify that with you, the history of this issue, and thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This wasn't just another political interview. This was a live on-air confrontation that exposed one of the most controversial employment decisions in Australian politics right now. At the center of it all is a case that has triggered outrage, debate, and serious ethical questions: the employment of a convicted rapist, Shah Black, by a former One Nation staffer. And when this issue was brought into the spotlight on national television, it didn't stay calm for long, because Jacinda Namba Jimpa Price didn't just respond as a politician, she responded as someone who framed this issue in deeply personal terms. She made it clear that she wasn't speaking only from a political standpoint, but as a survivor of sexual assault. And that shifted the entire tone of the conversation instantly. She argued that for many survivors, the idea of working in the same environment as someone convicted of sexual assault is not just uncomfortable, it is fundamentally unacceptable. That statement alone set the stage for a much bigger clash, because shortly after that emotional intervention, Pauline Hanson was directly confronted with a very serious question. Did she personally approve the re-employment of Shah Black after his rape conviction? And her answer was short, direct, and instantly explosive. Yes, she did. No hesitation, no deflection. But the moment that answer landed, the pressure immediately increased, because the next question followed right behind it, simple, but devastating in its implications. Did she regret it? And again, the response was firm. She said she did not regret the decision. She claimed there had been no complaints from staff, and emphasized that the individual had served his prison sentence and was trying to rebuild his life and support his family. In her framing, this wasn't about politics, it was about second chances, redemption, and rehabilitation. But that explanation didn't settle the matter. Instead, it escalated it, because the interviewer immediately pushed into the core contradiction. If the decision was justified and appropriate, then why did the staffer later leave the position? That question changed the tone of the entire exchange, because suddenly, this was no longer just about one employment decision, it became about consistency, accountability, and political pressure. And this is where the conversation shifted into full defense mode. Hanson argued that what was happening around her was not genuine scrutiny, but what she called a political pile-on. She accused political opponents and media outlets of deliberately digging through every possible detail to discredit her and One Nation. She described it as a coordinated effort, saying that both major parties and sections of the media were engaging in what she called gutter politics. According to her, this wasn't about justice or ethics, it was about political targeting. But the questioning didn't slow down, because the interviewer kept returning to the same central contradiction, the timeline of approval, defense, and eventual dismissal. And under that pressure, Hanson clarified her position further. She stated that the departure of Shah Black was not a simple firing triggered by backlash, but rather a mutual agreement. She claimed that the individual himself understood the political environment, the media attention, and the pressure that would continue to follow him. According to her, it was not a forced removal, but a decision made with awareness from both sides. She also pointed out that the individual had worked in politics before, including associations with multiple parties, and was not new to the system. She added that he had told her directly that once controversy begins at that level, it never truly stops. And that, she suggested, contributed to the decision for him to step away. But even with that explanation, the core tension of the interview remained unresolved, because the audience is still left with competing narratives. On one side, Hanson's argument is built on rehabilitation, second chances, and personal redemption. She presents the idea that once someone has served their sentence, they should not be permanently locked out of society or employment opportunities. On the other side, critics argue that certain crimes create irreversible trust issues, especially in public-facing or political environments, and that judgment in such hiring decisions must be far more cautious. And right in the middle of this debate is a very uncomfortable contradiction that the interviewer kept pressing on. If the decision was right, why was it reversed under pressure? If it was wrong, why defend it at all? That tension is what makes this exchange so powerful, because it's not just about one individual. It's about how political leaders balance ethics versus optics, rehabilitation versus responsibility, and principle vs public pressure. And that's why this moment is now being widely discussed, because regardless of political alignment, the public is now watching a deeper question unfold. How far should second chances go when trust, safety, and public confidence are involved? And can a political figure defend a controversial decision while also distancing themselves from its consequences when the pressure becomes too intense. This interview didn't fully answer those questions, but what it did do is expose the exact fault lines in the argument, live, on air, in real time, and that's why this moment is being called one of the most controversial political exchanges in recent coverage. Because at the end of the day, this is no longer just a staffing issue. It has become a full-scale political firestorm about judgment, accountability, and leadership under pressure.